I never stopped loving her. Even after my suspicions were aroused, a few strange things happened that hadn't happened in our entire 15 years of marriage, and my spidey senses were activated. Her outfits and new look changed significantly when a new boss took over the office. Our sex life suddenly changed for the better. She was now actually provoking me to have sex, something she had never done before. More frequent text messages at night and late-night meetings after work were now commonplace. Of course, she had perfect excuses for everything. But for some reason, my jealous nature was not satisfied. I asked the private firm not to tell me anything until the file was ready. I didn't want anything to change between us and prayed that I was just a paranoid husband. After 3 months of investigation, I was given a folder with news that I hoped would never come. After reviewing the video, audio, and photos, I told Mac, my attorney, to have the divorce papers drawn up and ready for me by Wednesday afternoon. I planned to show up for their date Thursday night, while they thought I was out of town. I had planned a nice surprise for the couple. It still amazed me how she could have thought she could get away with it. Annie knows me better than anyone she knows, how intuitive, strong-willed, and relentless I am. Heck, she saw how ruthless I can be when I took over the company and ruthlessly destroyed my competitors. Now I own a controlling interest in a major transportation company. The truckers and truck drivers have a lot of respect for me, and I treat them well. I know they have my back if they ever need me. I give Annie everything and have always treated her like a queen, and she knows it. She tells her friends and family how wonderful I am and how embarrassing it is that I'm crazy about her, but she also tells them how much she loves it. That's why this question is still bugging me, even during these past few hours. Why would she risk everything she has for an affair, have an affair with her boss for sex? Why, that was my most troubling question. Annie had always been a wonderful mother and wife, and it was really hard to understand sex was frequent and satisfying. I guess not satisfying enough, she took care of the house and worked full-time as an executive assistant at a local technology company. To this day, I would never have thought she could have had a lover. My name is Luciano Rossetti, and I have been Annie's husband for 15 years. We have 2 teenage daughters who still love their daddy. I am what you would call an alpha male, who doesn't take crap from anyone but treats his wife like the special prize I knew she was in our relationship. I let her take charge and feel powerful up to a point. Thanks to genetics, I inherited my father's physical attributes. I'm 2M tall, 120 kilograms of muscle, an imposing figure, but I'm a gentle giant until provoked. Annie has seen this a few times when we've been out together, and she's been hit on by some tough guys. Annie is a sex doll with big breasts, long, sexy legs, thin waist, and an angelic face. Guys are always staring at her and flirting with her, which drives me crazy. One of my flaws is my sneaky jealous streak, which once it activates is hard to control. Over the years, I've learned to contain my anger, but I haven't mastered that talent yet anyway. Annie has seen my jealous outbursts twice in the last 15 years, and she knows what I'm capable of twice when we were out some ... Tried to ask her to dance after she had already told them she was with me. Both times they didn't take no for an answer and dragged her out of the booth while I sat there watching. They must have thought that since they were big, tough guys, I would just sit there and let them take my wife. Big mistake. The first time it happened was when we were out for a walk, discussing our girls and having fun together. I was stunned when this guy had the nerve to grab her arm and pull her out of the stall before he took his first step onto the dance floor. I jumped out of my booth and got between him and my wife in a quick motion. I dislocated his shoulder and pushed him into our booth, where he squirmed in pain, taking Annie. I left the premises another time. It was the same thing, but that guy had a broken wrist and a concussion as we were leaving the bar again. Like I said, I don't take crap from anyone, and my biggest problem is jealousy, which again brings up the question of this affair. Since she knows me, why would she do that? Date night is Thursday. I've made all the arrangements. One of my assistants accompanied me and would hand me the folder when I was ready. I got there early and gave the hostess a good tip to seat them in a more private place. My wonderful wife knew I was out of town, and on the audio recording I heard her tell her boss that she was free Thursday night if he still wanted to meet. Of course the idiot did, and excitedly said he would plan it. The PI agency installed software for me to add to Annie's phone to receive copies of her text messages and emails. The app also had a function to record any audio and upload it to a private server. That Monday, I received a copy of a text message he had sent to Annie that included the time he would pick her up the restaurant where they had reservations and for her to dress sexy for him. I spit with anger after reading that and the way my soon-to-be ex-wife had behaved. How dare this guy pick up my wife at my house? My plan was actually simple. Let the lovers get settled in with their first drink and then suddenly appear. At this point, I would begin my speech, which would end with a little threat and unexpected divorce papers. My anger and thirst for revenge was growing. I knew deep down that Annie wouldn't want a divorce because she truly loved me and the children. I knew that what I was about to do would crush her and change her life forever. I didn't care, and I just wanted her to feel a fraction of the pain she had caused me. Now, some would say I should be lenient and get over it for the sake of the kids in our 15-year marriage, after all. It was just sex. Did I mention that I was an immature, jealous alpha male? There was no way in hell I was going to let some other man enter my wife and then keep her as his loving partner. As much as I loved her, and as much as it hurt, I knew I could never again look at her or touch her the way I used to. I had eyes and backup on the scene, ready to alert me at a moment's notice. So on Thursday night, after receiving word that a couple in love had seated themselves and ordered drinks, I was ready to meet them face to face. I got out of my car, walked into the restaurant, smiled at the hostess, took a deep breath, and holding my anger in check, proceeded with my plan. A couple in love were sitting at their table, and my heart snapped when I noticed that my beautiful wife was wearing a sexy cocktail dress and her perfect breasts were on display. It really grossed me out, as she had never dressed like that for me. Why would she do that to me? I couldn't understand it. It didn't make any sense, and it was driving me crazy. She obviously wanted to be his favorite tonight and look sexy for her boyfriend, and it was pissing me off. I approached them from the side and snuck over to their table without them knowing, because they were so romantically focused on each other. How cute it wasn't until I pushed my chair away from a neighboring table that they noticed my movement. The look on Annie's face was priceless. Her look combined shock, fear, and guilt in a way I'd never seen before. Her beau had no idea what was going on, nor did he realize I was her husband. He just looked at me with an annoyed expression on his stupid face. And so it began. "Hi, Annie, are you two having a fun date tonight?" I asked with a wide smile. "Honey, what are you doing here? I thought you were out of town tonight." "My boss Jeremy invited me to dinner to discuss some changes in the organization. Please join us, Jeremy. This is my husband, Luciano," she said in a loving and calm voice. God, she was so smooth. I had to admit she was cool and recovered quickly. The drink I'd ordered before coming to the table arrived, and ignoring Annie's lie, I proposed a toast. I ignored her question and with a disarming smile said, "Raise your glasses and join me in a little toast. Let's drink to an interesting night and a new direction." After my toast, I smiled and turned to her boss. "Jeremy, do you know why Annie and I have been able to stay happily married for 15 years? Honesty and TR trust. It's as simple as that. Are you married, Jeremy? Of course, I already knew all about him from the report. Yes, I've been married for 20 years and have 4 wonderful children ranging in age from 5 to 13. And I agree with you. Luciano, trust and honesty are also an important part of our marriage. I'm so glad to hear that. Jeremy, Annie, do you feel the same way?" I asked, knowing I was putting her in a difficult position. "Yes, dear, it was important to our marriage," she said confidently. After all, she had just said they were just having a business dinner. She had no reason to feel guilty or nervous. "You see, Jeremy, we have an amazing marriage, and Annie knows how much I love her and would do anything for her as long as she remains faithful." I saw them both cringe slightly as I took another sip from my glass. I continued my game. "So how long have you two been dating?" I asked carelessly with a wide smile. Annie was annoyed, tried to pull herself together, and resented me. "Honey, this is a business meeting and you're embarrassing me in front of my boss. Please stop acting jealous. You know me better than that." Following Annie's lead, her bow took the opportunity to put me in my place. "Yes, Luano, this is just a business dinner. I needed to discuss some changes I was going to make, and I needed to meet with Annie tonight. I'm sorry if you misunderstood, my friend. I would never go beyond my professional relationship, especially with a married woman." I tried to adopt an apologetic look and said, "Oh, I'm sorry, so you've never gone on a date with my wife, and this is just a business dinner." "That's right, Luciano, there's nothing going on between us." "My friend Annie, is this true? Just a business meeting, and you've never been with him or on a date before?" I asked the question that will determine our future honesty or lies. What was it supposed to be? Unfortunately, I had already anticipated the answer before she spoke. "Business meetings only." "Darling, I would never be with another man, especially my own boss. Now please stop acting childish." "I'm sorry, Jeremy, My husband has a slight tendency to be jealous, but he knows how much I love him." I lowered my head, feigning submission, and said, "Please forgive me. I'm sorry that I do feel a little jealous. I mean, seeing you in that sexy dress with that handsome man. I hope you can understand me." Jeremy patted me on the back, clearly relieved that I was fooled, and said, "Luciano, there's no need to apologize if my wife looked this good and was on a date with a strange man. Well, I'm not sure what I would have done." Everyone relaxed, and I raised my hand to the man watching us from the bar. He understood my signal and walked over to the table. Everyone looked at him as he handed me a thick folder, turned, and walked away. I saw Annie and Jeremy look at each other questioningly as I opened the folder and started laying out the pictures on the table. Just before I put the first picture on the table, I turned to Annie and spoke in a quiet, sad voice. "Annie, you know that I loved you with all my heart and would have given you the whole world. You took my love and all the years of our marriage and threw it all away. You hurt me deeply, and I will never forget those videos and the things you said about me on the tapes. I will never be able to get them out of my head for the rest of my life. Thank you for this." The first 8 in X10 in picture I posted had Annie on her knees with Jeremy's buddy in her mouth, and then several where they were, __, in different positions. Annie AED and put her hands up to her mouth. Jeremy was pissed and wanted to know where I got the pictures, but I just told him to shut the __. Up after I posted the pictures, I took the time to go through them and comment on each one. I said something like, "Annie, you look so sexy with his buddy in your mouth. You look very happy in this picture. Did you like it?" Annie was now openly sobbing and begging me to stop. The other tables were looking in our direction, and I tried to keep the volume down so as not to disturb the whole restaurant. Annie realized how bad it looked, and she only had one choice. "I'm sorry, baby, can we just leave and I'll explain what happened? It's not really what it looks like." I looked at her with a surprised expression on my face and asked very slowly, "It's not what it looks like. Are you going to keep lying to me? __. Before you do, you both should know that I have hours of video, audio, text messages, emails, and pictures. Annie, I have to say that after watching those videos, I never thought you could be so __. You have never shared this side of yourself with me, and it hurts. I have spent a fortune in the last 3 months to get this information, and it's all legit. So trust me, I understand putting the documents away. I said, now let me explain why I am here and what's going to happen tonight." Then I handed Annie the divorce papers and said, "Annie, it's over between us. You and your boyfriend have destroyed our marriage and my love for you. You have hurt me like I have never been hurt before. And I will never be with you again, so you will sign this tonight, and my fellow lawyer, a notary public, will notarize your signature. If you don't sign tonight, I will show all the XXX video and audio to your parents. All our friends and your kids will know what kind of mother you are. I treated you fairly in the divorce, but the girls will live with me. There's no way my daughters are living with a cheating __. Like you, Jeremy, my friend, I suggest you get your girlfriend to sign this before I leave. Otherwise, I will give copies of all evidence to your wife and your management team at work. When I'm done, you won't have a job, and I'll be sure to get your wife, Sarah, to kick you out and ruin you financially for a very long time now. I don't want to do any of that, so just convince her to sign the divorce papers, and then my soon-to-be ex-wife is completely at your disposal. I never want anything to do with that __. Again, those words struck a nerve with her. The thought of losing her daughters was something else she couldn't face. Tears streamed down her face and her boyfriend looked panicked. Annie begged me to stop and change my mind. She told me the usual nonsense. "It's not what it looks like. Let me explain. I'll make it up to you. It was just a mistake. Please forgive me, blah, blah, blah." She ended with the words, "Luciano, I love you and I don't want this. Please give me another chance," ignoring her. "Please." I stood up and said, "I'm going to the men's room, and when I come back, I want the papers signed. If they are not signed, I promise you both won't be able to realize how much hell I will bring into your lives." I left Annie crying and her lover in a state of shock. I knew Jeremy would do everything in his power to get her to sign those papers to save his own ass. While I was gone, Jeremy spoke quickly. He knew there was no way he was going to let his wife and his co-workers see those videotapes, and he would do everything in his power to prevent it. He had to convince Annie to sign the papers. Annie, just sign them, and then ask him to hold them for a week to give you a chance to talk. You need to convince him that you love him. Tell him you'll go to therapy no matter what it takes, but make him wait a week. Tell him that this is the least he can do in 15 years of marriage for just one mistake. This is the only chance I see for you right now. I can tell you he's not fooling around. And if he has video and audio recordings, we're both screwed. I don't want a divorce, she screamed. Trust me, if you make him wait, I'm sure you can save your marriage. Think of the children you don't want to lose, the girls. Do you? Tears came to my eyes again, and after a few minutes I returned to the table. Well, have you signed them yet? With the saddest face I had ever seen, she looked me in the eyes and said, Honey, I'll do anything you want me to do, including signing those papers, but please give me a week before you do anything. Please let me go home with you and give me at least that long after 15 years. Please give me 1 week to be with my girls and talk. Please give me that much. I sat in silence and looked into her eyes for a long time, pondering her request. I gave in and said, even though you deserve, __from me, for what you did and the way you ruined our marriage because of that, __, I'll give you this. You can go home and you'll have a week before I hand over the paperwork to my lawyer. You'll stay in one of the guest bedrooms. I don't want you anywhere near my bed at this time now. Sign them so I can get out of here. She signed the papers and I put them in the folder, then got up to leave before I left. I took her hand and she smiled until she realized I was taking off her wedding rings. I put them in my pocket and then took off the ring I had worn for 15 years. I picked it up while she looked at it and tossed it carelessly into her wine glass. The look on her face gave me only a small amount of satisfaction, but when she started crying again, it made me smile slightly because I knew she was starting to feel my pain. I turned to Jeremy and said, well, __, she's your girlfriend. Do whatever you want to do with her. I'm leaving. But remember, this Jeremy, you screwed my wife, ruined our marriage, and jeopardized so many things, including my children's love for their mother. Your ass is mine, and I have your balls in my hand. Don't mess with my head. You're lucky I didn't fulfill my original plans for you. It's not over between us yet. __. You'll be hearing from me soon. Understand? Jeremy nodded quietly as I loomed over him. Looks like I may have ruined their plans for the evening. I wonder if they'll still want to, __. After I'm gone, as I was about to leave, Annie grabbed my hand and said, Luciano, can I please go home with you? I just want to be with you, please. I yanked my hands away as if they had been touched with a hot iron and said, __. You, I don't want to be seen with a __. Today you are his, __. I'll see you after he's done having you tonight or tomorrow. Either way, it doesn't matter to me. You have 1 week. You disgust me, and I'm ashamed of being your husband. Okay, yeah, I was a jerk, but I really didn't care. I felt like I kept my jealousy and anger in check. I was proud that I was able to suppress all the rage I had built up. I really gave it a week. Let's take a look at how it happened. The next morning, I heard her come home about an hour later that evening, and to her credit, she headed straight for the guest room. She realized that there was no way I was going to have a quiet conversation with her that evening. We met the next morning in the kitchen. When I came down for coffee, I was still in the mood for revenge, so I proceeded to play Dick and said, good morning, __. How is my __, wife doing today? She cringed, lowered her gaze into her coffee, and uttered exactly the words that every cheating wife who has been caught cheating and wants to save her marriage utters. Honey, we need to talk. Look, there's nothing to talk about, Annie. I know what you did. I know how long you've been doing this. I know everything you've said to him about me and our marriage. I've seen you do things to him that you never did to me. I've seen you dress up for him. I know he's bigger and better. I've heard it 100 times in your videos. You lied, covered up, cheated, and kept me fooled. I can't believe you were that stupid. If I don't understand something, then we can talk otherwise. I have nothing to say. I'm the fool, not you. I don't know why I let this happen. You've given me everything I've ever wanted, and I love you regardless of what you heard in those videos. You should know I never meant to hurt you, and I never wanted you to find out. She said with tears rolling down her face, that's exactly my problem. Annie, you never wanted me to find out. You wanted to keep it a secret and keep lying and __. Your lover behind my back, that's the real problem. Annie, I can forgive infidelity. Damn it, we're all human and we all make mistakes, but this wasn't a mistake. You wanted it, and you wanted to keep it a secret and keep lying, cheating, and hiding your relationship. I love you, Annie, but as Tina Turner says, what does love have to do with it? My trust is lost, and I wonder if I ever really knew you. How many other men have there been? How many times have you your lover and come back to my bed? I'm so disgusted I can barely speak, sobbing. She now understood how I felt and realized what she had done. She had no objections or excuses, but she admitted her transgression. Okay, I'm guilty and I hate myself. I've never had anyone else. And no matter what I say, I know you can't forgive me for what I've done, but I don't want a divorce. I will do whatever you want me to do to stay in this with you. I think I need counseling, and maybe we could go together to find out what's wrong with me. Please don't leave me. I was quiet for a while, and then I said, Annie, you can go to a counselor and figure out what you need, and I will support you. But I can't live with a woman who can leave me so carelessly. Your actions and what you said told me your true feelings, and I don't see how I can live with someone who has those feelings for me. I know there are other women who would be more than happy to be with me. You had your chance, and you willingly took it. Enjoy your week here with the girls and try to explain why you're leaving. I won't belittle you, but you need to tell them you're leaving and why in the divorce agreement I gave you full access to the girls anytime you want, but they will live with me if you continue to be promiscuous and set a bad example for the girls. I will make your visits much more difficult. Look, I will treat you better than you deserve and help keep your relationship with the girls intact. But I have 2 questions I would like answered. Listen to my questions and think about them before you answer. My first question is why did you risk everything for this? My second question is, was it worth it? I called Jeremy the following Monday and asked him to meet me for lunch on Wednesday after convincing him how reasonable it would be to meet with me. I explained to Jeremy how upset I was about him destroying my marriage and how he was close to getting kicked out. I then explained that I had a better plan for him during lunch. I explained how many people were hurt because he seduced a married woman. I explained how I expected him to make amends. He was going to pay Annie's rent and car payment for the next 3 years. I felt he should be in some pain for his actions. I explained how this would work. I will send you payment information so you can set up automatic payments. This is your punishment. And trust me, you'll get off easy. Even though I broke up with my wife, I still love her and want her to be taken care of. Since you are the one who caused this, you will honor my demands. This agreement will help Annie get back on her feet after I kick her out. I don't care how you do it, but if you don't follow through, I'll make sure you lose your job. And that Sarah finds out about your infidelity as a side benefit. You get to stay alive all this because you had to seduce a married woman. Like you should realize that your actions have consequences. Why not court single girls instead of destroying families? That was a really shitty move. Jeremy epilogue. I treated Annie well, let her visit the kids, and kept their relationship strong. We remained friends, but she never returned my respect or trust. Jerry made these payments every month based on my threat hanging over his head. Annie was never able to explain or answer these questions to my satisfaction. It was clear to her that her deception and lies were not worth it, and she regretted doing it, but could not explain why now she lives alone without a boyfriend and without the love she once had. I could have destroyed her, but losing her family and my love was revenge enough. Even after her counseling, the answer to the why question still couldn't be explained. The best she could come up with at the moment was, I don't know why it just happened. It had nothing to do with you or our marriage. Because I do love you and I was happy with our sex and our life together. But it was something new and exciting I screwed up. I couldn't help myself, Annie. If you were happy, why would you dress up and wear sexy clothes for him? Why would you dress up like that and do things for him that you never did with me? Maybe if you had made that kind of effort with me, we wouldn't be in this position. It just happened is not really an answer. You did it over and over again, and each time you dressed in a way that turned him on. But you tell me you loved me. I hope someday you can tell me why. I think you owe a lot to all of us, for us husbands and boyfriends who have been cheated on. It seems like a mystery that can't be solved thanks to these 2 cheating couples. I'm not sure I'll ever be able to trust or fully commit to another woman again. It's sad, but it's a fact married partners need to think through their actions and the consequences they inevitably entail. The path of destruction left behind is more significant and lasting than the excitement of sexual fulfillment. Talk to your partner. Either share each other's needs or end the relationship. But betrayal is a painful act with lasting consequences. Luke Abrams parked at his workstation and waited for the Grateful Dead Ripple song to finish before turning off the engine and opening the door. He looked up at the neon sign above the entrance to the building and felt proud when he saw Abrams Manufacturing written above the door. The guard at the door greeted him as Luke made his way to his corner office on the top floor. His CFO had told him that the company was now worth $20 million. And not a month went by that some firm or venture capitalist didn't want to discuss buying the business. Luke wasn't interested, as he loved his job, his business, his team of people, and he saw no reason to cash out at this young age. Life was good. His family life had been great all these years. He and Becky, his wife of 14 years, had struggled at first when he started his business, but now lived very comfortably. Becky worked part-time as a marketing consultant and often worked from home. She was tall, 5'8" in tall, with fiery red hair, and an incredible body. Her breasts and ass were perfect, and she had bonus legs that stretched for miles. Their sex life was really good. Although Luke had noticed a definite decrease over the last 6 months from 3-4 times a week to just once a week. Becky also seemed to be more attached to her phone, sending messages to God knows who. And one day when he picked it up to check match results, he noticed that it was now password protected, something that hadn't been the case in the past. He talked to her about sex and how she had become more reserved and quiet in their interactions. But she said that she felt older and more tired, and he should just know that she loved him more than he ever imagined. They talked about kids. She didn't want any yet, but he told her how important it was to him, and she agreed that within 6 months, she would give up birth control. She wasn't as excited about it as he was, but he thought she was thrilled with the idea. As Luke sat in his office thinking about it, his friend and VP of sales Chad Warwick walked into his office looking shy. Chad had been friends with him in college, and they had played soccer and hockey together in high school. He wasn't his best friend, but Luke considered him close now. The relationship was a mixture of friendship, but also Luke was the boss, and although he treated his employees as partners, Luke ultimately decided what they should do. Chad peeked through the door and said, "Boss, I feel like crap today. I think I have the or something, so if you don't mind, I'm going home to bed and I'll be back either later or tomorrow. I'm done with the proposal for the new climate control systems. I'll see you tomorrow." "Okay, Chad. Hang in there and hope you feel better." Luke decided to work more on the new business line he was going to create and opened his workstation to pull up the files. He noticed that he had an older version and remembered that he had worked on it over the weekend and saved the files on his home computer instead of uploading it to the company server. He decided that he would ask Becky to email the file instead of driving home. He tried calling the home line, but the phone switched to voicemail. He tried Becky's cell phone, but it was off, which he thought was odd considering she had a work day. Oh well, that was okay. He'd make it home in 20 minutes. Luke was enjoying the weather and the good tunes on the NPR when he turned down his block and pulled up in front of his house. He spotted a car in the driveway that looked familiar, and it didn't take him long to realize it was his friend Chad's. Leluki parked on the street, walked up the driveway, and quietly opened the front door. The first floor was quiet. No lights or radio on. Becky wasn't in the study at the desk. He walked to the kitchen and then heard moans and voices coming from the master bedroom in his mind and heart. He couldn't believe what he already knew in his gut. Someone was having his wife in his bed. He grabbed a long waft knife from the shelf and slowly walked up the stairs. He stood in the hallway, obscured by the door jamb so they couldn't see him, but he could hear what they were talking about. They were hugging and talking, and he heard Becky say, "Chad, we can do this a few more times. I think Luke is getting suspicious of my aloofness and my constant texting on the phone. And I don't make love to him more than once a week because I feel so guilty, and it feels so wrong to make love to you and then to him the next day. I've really enjoyed our little affair for the past 4 months. It's my indulgence of my desires to have dirty and illicit sex before I go off the pill to have kids. So I want you to me like you've never me before, because this will be the last time here, and then the Denver conference, and then we're done." Luke remembered that Becky had told him that she was going to a marketing conference in Denver in 2 weeks. And he quickly realized that it coincided with the sales conference that Chad would be attending in Denver that same weekend. Luke was crushed by what he heard. He pulled out his phone and turned on the video, slowly peering out from behind the door jamb. His wife, Becky, was now riding his friend and employee, Chad. Riding him like a bucking horse. She was yelling, "Come on, Chad. Take me harder. You like it when I have you in your marriage bed. Don't you say it? Damn it. Yes, Chad. No one has me like you. Now let me finish at that moment." Luke burst into the room, shooting a cell phone in one hand and a knife in the other. He grabbed Becky by the hair, ripped her away from Chad, spun her around and pushed her onto the bed. She screamed and saw it was Luke. Her eyes widened, her mouth fell open, and she wailed. "Luke, this doesn't mean anything at that moment." She tried to get up and walk over to Luke, and Chad tried to move to the edge of the bed and stand up, but Luke held out the knife and yelled, "Both of you sit on the bed and shut the hell up or you'll find a 12-in blade in your chest." Now they both sat up and pulled the sheet up. Becky started sobbing uncontrollably and Chad started telling Luke, "Boss, it's really nothing. It's just sex, just a distraction for us. It doesn't mean anything. Luke, I love you. It was just meaningless sex with Chad. It doesn't change how I feel about you. It was just the last time I see some wild oats before you and I settle down with kids. Please, Luke, it's okay. Send Chad away. Come and give me a hug and I'll make it up to you." Luke looked at her like she'd lost her mind. "Becky, doesn't that mean anything? Well, I think you've proven that our marriage means nothing to you. You've demonstrated that you don't respect me and that I was a fool to believe that you loved me. How can you say you love me when you've had Chad in my own bed for months? You want me to cuddle with you, damn it. I can barely look at you and I'll never touch you again. That's for sure. God damn it now. Just sit there and shut up, you miserable sack of." Becky recoiled at the sight of his anger and hurt. He had never spoken to her like that. He practically idolized her and treated her with love and respect, and his response cut straight to the soul. With those words, Luke made a quick call, looked at Chad, and said, "Janie, it's Luke. I'm sending you a video of Chad having my wife Becky in my bed. I don't know if you knew he was abusing you and the kids, and I'm just sorry to have to tell you this." Luke was quiet for a few minutes before hanging up, and then he told Chad, "She tells you not to worry about coming home. Obviously, this isn't the first time you've betrayed your life and your children. Now add betraying your friend and your boss and ruining 2 marriages. What a worthless sack of you are. I'll give you one chance to save your job. Tell me exactly when it started and how many times you two slept together." Becky looked at Luke and said, "Don't make us go over it. It doesn't matter, it doesn't mean anything, and it stops right now. Please." Luke's look of hatred and pain made her pull back even harder, huddle into the headboard of the bed, and avert her eyes. She continued to cry and as Chad answered, "Luke, please don't throw away our friendship over this and don't let it affect the good work I do for the company. Becky means nothing to me and I mean nothing to her. We were only seduced by the sexual lust of an illicit affair. This is the 4th time we've been dating. The first time we were both in Denver for different conferences, and I knew she would be there. I called her the first night to go out to dinner. Well, we ate and drank a lot and danced and really felt a spark for each other. So that night and the next, we would go up to my room and have sex. Then about a month later, Becky called me and said you were going out of town for the day to visit a new construction site and asked me to come over. We ended up in your room and she seemed to enjoy doing it in your marriage bed. 3 weeks later, we got a room at the Hilton Hotel, met for lunch at noon, and had sex there. Now she called me and asked me to get sick, come over on her because she was incredibly horny. We were going to meet at the next conference in Denver next month for one last time and spend 3 nights each other trying to consummate it. We both felt guilty and shitty about doing this to you and my family. Becky knows you want to have kids and she's going off the pill, so we decided that was it and we're going to be good spouses again. I'm so sorry, Luke. Looking back, I knew it was so wrong, and now I've ruined my marriage and possibly your marriage and my career if you can't forgive us." Becky looked at Luke and said, "Yes. Luke, I was so caught up in the mystery there was nothing wrong with you. Luke, I love you. I've never loved anyone but you, and I want your children and to grow old with you. You treated me like a queen. Sex with Chad was fun, but it was nothing compared to loving you. Please don't abandon me and our marriage for a mistake. It meant nothing. It meant nothing. Do you even know me? How can you think that letting another man be intimate with you means nothing to our marriage? Do you think I could ever get past the pain of being lied to move past the lies and ever trust you again? How could you think I would ever want to touch your cheating body again? How do you think I could have the same spark, The same connection and the same love that I had for you after you insulted me like that. How can you not see the strain this has already put on our marriage? The lack of conversation and communication reducing love-making and turning it into just mechanical sex one drunken night may be a mistake. But planning and executing meetings at out-of-town conventions and at our house is a deal, not a mistake. What the hell is wrong with you? Becky, for the first time, began to realize what she had done. She had convinced herself that it was meaningless sex, and it wouldn't hurt her relationship. Maybe even make it stronger, but when Luke spoke, she realized that she had emotionally and physically distanced herself from him. She didn't understand why, since she loved and wanted only him. Maybe it was the guilt she was trying to bury that was eating away at her. And their relationship, she thought her affair would never come to light. Luke trusted her so much she saw that trust would never be the same again. She thought Luke loved her so much he would forgive, and she would quickly make him forget being a loving and caring wife and having children. Now she realized how she had been deceiving herself. She had fooled herself into thinking she deserved this, and it would make her a better wife now. She saw how much pain and disrespect she had poured out on the man she loved so much and wanted to have children with him and a long life. Oh my God, she thought, have I ruined everything? How am I going to get through this? All she could do was look at Luke and say, please, Luke, please forgive me for hurting you. I didn't think much about what I was doing. I didn't realize it would be so devastating. I never meant to disrespect you. I never wanted to hurt you the way I hurt you. Now. Luke picked up his phone and scrolled through the part of the video where she was screaming, "Yes, Chad! No one has me like you do now. Make me finish. How the hell could you think you weren't disrespecting me when you make comments like that and have that worthless piece of in my own bed? You disgust me." Luke looked at Chad and said, "There is no way to save your job. Don't bother coming in tomorrow. You're fired. Now get the hell out of my house." Chad started to get up and so did Becky, but Luke yelled at her, "Stay there and don't move." She squirmed in the bed as she saw the hurt and resentment on Luke's face replaced with anger and pure hatred. My God, what have I done to hurt such a good man and turn his love for me into hate? Chad grabbed his clothes, ran down the stairs, jumped out the door, and sped off in his car. Luke looked at Becky and cried. She got out of bed and tried to go over to him and hug him, but he looked at her in disgust, turned away and held up the knife to keep her from coming near him. She hoped that maybe if she gave Luke space, he would calm down and they could talk. It was her only hope. She cried and washed for half an hour. After she washed her face, toweled herself dry, and put on her robe, she opened the bathroom door quietly, fearing another furious scream from Luke and knowing she deserved it. But the room was quiet. She looked out into the hallway and the house seemed quiet. "Luke, I'll make up a spare bedroom for you and stay away from you for as long as you want until you calm down enough to let me talk to you, explain my actions, and apologize." She heard no reply. She saw that the dresser drawers were open and empty, and most of the clothes in his closet were gone. 2 large suitcases from the closet were gone. Then she turned around and saw a 12-inch butcher knife stuck up to the hilt into the pillow and mattress. She realized Luke was gone, and could only hope he stayed safe, didn't hurt himself, and would return her calls when he calmed down. In a day or two, she went into the spare bedroom, threw herself on the bed, curled up in a fetal position, and cried until she fell asleep. Luke went to his office and spent a very restless night on the couch in the adjoining conference room. He notified HR and security that Chad was terminated later that morning. Chad did show up on site, assuming Luke had cooled off. But security took his badge, walked him to his car, and told him that if he showed up again, the police would be called. Luke spent a couple hours alone at his desk, pondering where to go next. He clearly realized that despite the depth of his love for Becky, their marriage was over. He would never be able to feel that same spark of joy, trust, and deep union of his heart and soul with her, and that meant the marriage had failed. Pride, resentment, anger, jealousy. It didn't matter what to call it. She was no longer his life partner. Having children was out of the question. It was over. Luke called his CFO, and they spent 4 hours of very detailed discussion about the value of the company and what Luke had decided to do his right-hand man. The CFO was stunned to hear about Chad and Becky. He begged him not to do anything rash, to let his anger and pain subside for a few weeks and then decide what he wanted to do. But Luke had already made his decision. Becky woke up in the morning, and the pain and hurt she saw on Luke's face quickly came crashing down on her when she fully came to her senses. Oh my God, how could I have been so stupid? Some mediocre sex with someone I barely like, much less have no love for, may have ruined my marriage to the only man I truly love. What the hell is wrong with me? She was determined to fix it, to get Luke back, to get them both back to the way they were before she'd been saint stupid enough to have an affair. She was sure that Luke loved her so much that he would never leave her. She couldn't resist calling his cell phone. It immediately went to voicemail, so she left him a message. Luke, I'm so sorry. I love you so much, and I know I hurt you, and I'm so ashamed, but Luke, you love me, and I love you, and we can get through this. I'll do whatever you want me to do to make it go away. I promise I'll be the best wife and mother you could ever hope for. Please come to me or call me. I need you. Please talk to me, Luke. There was no response from Luke that day or the next. On the third day, she called his administrator, Brenda, at the office. Brenda was very close to Luke, in fact, idolized him, and Luke had told her about what had happened between Chad and Becky. Brenda returned Becky's call and explicitly informed her that Luke was busy, instructed her not to let her call him personally, and that he would be happy to be left alone until he was ready. Becky assumed that she'd meant willing to talk, but Brenda hadn't actually said that well. At this point, Becky assumed that Luke needed time. Becky called Chad, and now knew that Luke had indeed fired him from his job. She had also heard that Chad's wife had kicked him out and he had moved back in with his parents. He hinted that he wanted to come over and talk to Becky about Luke forgiving them, but she told him to back off and that she never wanted to talk to him again. She placed most of the blame on him, even though she subconsciously realized that she was fooling herself and felt just as guilty, if not more so than Chad. She couldn't understand why she'd really done it and how stupid it had been to risk everything they had with Luke. Becky gave Luke a week and then couldn't take it anymore. She called his cell phone, but the number was no longer in service. She called his office and was told that Luke would not be available and she should stop calling. This was too much for her. She had to go all out. She had wanted to keep her affair a secret, hoping and assuming that Luke wouldn't want family and friends to know that she had cheated on him. But now she started calling all of his friends and asking if they knew where he was staying and what he was thinking. They all replied that they had nothing to tell her and that Luke had told them it was their own business. The disdain with which they treated her made her realize that Luke had probably told them about the affair, and that added to her shame and sadness. Becky eventually called Luke's parents to see if he was staying with them, but when they picked up the phone and she introduced herself and said hello, they hung up. She called again and they switched to voicemail. She went to Luke's company and talked security into letting her into the lobby. They called Brenda, who approached Becky and bluntly asked her what she needed. Becky was close to tears and said, "I want my husband to come downstairs and talk to me. He should respect his wife enough to talk to me, and let me explain, should he respect his wife as much as she respected him in their marriage." Maybe you need to think more about what you did anyway. Luke doesn't work here anymore. He has sold the company and moved out of the area and has made it very clear that he is not giving you any information about his current status, well-being, or location. Now please leave, or I will have security escort you off the premises. Becky rushed home in utter confusion, sold the company. He would never do. That left the neighborhood. Why wouldn't he talk to her? She sat down to her email and tried to write him a long letter of apology, but when she sent it to both his personal and work email addresses, it came back. Address is invalid. She called his parents again, but they blocked her number. She went back to the spare bedroom and collapsed on the bed for the next 4 weeks. Becky lived like a zombie. She heard nothing about Luke. Not a word about where he was or how he was coping with their marriage. In desperation, she hired a private detective firm, and eventually they sent her a report with limited information. They told her that Luke had sold his company, and although the exact price hadn't been made public, it was estimated to be gone for more than $20 million. They told her that he had closed all of Becky and Becky's joint accounts and credit cards, canceled his phone, internet, and email, sold all of his valuables, and apparently left town. They told her that Luke had paid off the mortgage on the house and put the bill of sale in her name. They were unable to get any of his friends, co-workers, or relatives to tell them anything about his whereabouts or how to contact him. 8 weeks after Luke left, a man came to the front door and handed Becky an envelope. She saw that Luke's name was written on the address label and opened the envelope hoping to get some information. The first thing that fell out when she opened the envelope was his wedding ring, then some paperwork, and then a photograph that had been cut into strips picking up the pieces of the photo. She saw that it was their wedding portrait that had been put through a shredder. She couldn't stand it and cried for several minutes until she was able to open the rest of the contents of the envelope. There were legal documents, and a letter in the envelope was a flash drive. She grabbed the letter and started reading. Becky, I know you wanted to see me, talk to me, and were sure we could end your affair. You thought it was just meaningless sex, a mistake, something I should just forget, and that we would go back to our marriage as it was before you decided to break our wedding vows. And my trust, I was amazed that you could delude yourself into thinking that the same or even close to what we had was ever possible. I know you never loved me, at least the way I loved you. Since you were able to deceive me, you didn't seem to realize the pain you caused. No one had ever hurt me like that. And the fact that it came from the woman I loved more than life was too much to ever forgive. I could never trust you again, never be able to touch you or make love to you again. Maybe you don't remember what happened, or maybe it wasn't important to you. If so, I have attached a video of you and Chad destroying our marriage. Your words alone are enough to break my heart every time I think of them, from the calls I initially received from our very close friends and family about how I could have left you and why I was so cruel to disappear from your life. It was clear to me that you never took responsibility for your actions. I'm sorry to say that this same video with another letter was sent to these people to make them realize the depth of the betrayal and that there was nothing that could be done about it. I was so devastated and destroyed by you that I decided to take revenge. I'm not happy with my actions, but I believe they were the only path open to me. I have decided that from this day forward, you will never hear from me again. You will never see me again, and I will never return to our home, our town, maybe even our state. I guess I'll never understand why you did it, what drove you to do it. I hope you figure it out before you have another serious relationship, and I hope you remember my pain before you start cheating on someone again. I hope that sometime in the near future I can get over the pain, humiliation, and disrespect I went through, and I can remember the old times in our relationship that were filled with love. I hope that someday, instead of the hatred I feel for you, I can at least feel indifference, or I can find forgiveness or understanding, however that may be. You'll never know. You may not care, but I'll never know it, and that's what I'll live with. Goodbye. The last set of papers in the envelope was titled Dissolution of Marriage, but at this point, Becky saw nothing through her tears and collapsed to the floor. Epilogue: It had been 5 years since Luke had disappeared, and just as the letter had said, Becky had not heard a word from anyone about his health, his spirit, his whereabouts, or his life. Luke was very generous in the divorce decree, offering her $1 million, a house and property, in lieu of any ongoing financial support. Her attorney told her that this was the best offer she could get, since the $22 million for which Luke sold the company was not kept in the United States and would never be available for any legal compensation. Becky really didn't care. In her opinion, she deserved nothing and would never fight what Luke thought was fair. At first, her life was very difficult as friends and family saw the devastating video of her having sex with Chad in her marital bed. She realized how much she had hurt Luke and how she herself had caused him to hurt her by sending the video. She also realized that it was a way to prevent anyone from asking about what had happened and if they could be together again. She felt extremely humiliated, embarrassed, and hurt that friends and family had seen it, but realized that it wasn't yet as bad as what she had done to Luke. She lived with her shame and, at her parents' insistence, decided to see a therapist to work on her grief and depression and try to turn her life around. She had a few dates, but she never seemed to enjoy herself or let anyone in on her private thoughts and pain, so nothing ever progressed. Beyond a few painfully awkward encounters, there were a few nights where she tried to find solace in sex. They were so awkward, so humiliating, and served as such a grim reminder of what had once been and how she had sunk to that point that she could no longer bear the thought of meaningless sex. When Luke left, he took away the photo albums and she was left with no pictures of them together. And with each passing year, the memories of his looks, his voice, his spirit and personality, his loving touch gradually faded from her life.